Hello, my name is Bailey Smith, and today I will be talking about zebra mussels and their impact on the Colorado River. So, you may be asking yourself, what exactly are zebra mussels? Zebra mussels are a small freshwater bivalve shellfish, and they are filter feeders. They are generally pretty easy to identify because they have a flat bottom D shape to their shells, and they have black zigzag stripes against a cream background, hence the name zebra mussels. The D shape allows them to sit flat against solid surfaces. They grow to about 2 inches at most, but they are microscopic in their larval stage. This larval stage is also known as veliger. They attach themselves to solid underwater surfaces using thread-like strands called byssal fibers, which is helped by the fact that they have a flat bottom. These byssal fibers are tipped with a strong, sticky substance that allows them to stick quite well and can be quite difficult to remove. So zebra mussels have 3 main life stages, and they usually live from around 2 to 5 years, but some of them can live for up to 8 years. They often begin reproducing at about 2 years old, and each female, under the right conditions, can release up to 1 million eggs a year. And these eggs are not fertilized yet, but as the other male zebra mussels release their sperm into the water, it makes it quite easy for these eggs to be fertilized. So the 3 life stages are the veliger, as I mentioned, that is the larval stage. This usually occurs from when they're about 4 to 8 weeks old, and as I mentioned, they are microscopic. As the picture on the right says, they are less than 1 millimeter long. And this is significant because you can't see them, so you don't know if you're bringing zebra mussels from one body of water into another. Their middle life stage is called the settler, which is the juvenile stage. Then they go on to their adult years, which some people say occur as they transform into adults in about the first year. Some people say it's more closer to 2 years. So why exactly are they considered an invasive species? Well, invasive species are often species that are, of course, from a different area, not native to the area, but cause significant harm in one way or another. For zebra mussels, they attach to our native mussel species. This can prevent the native mussel species from moving, feeding, reproducing, and regulating water properly. Because of this, it pretty much sticks the native mussels to their place, which can make them easily outcompeted for food and space, but they also outcompete other species, including small fish species, for food. They, as I mentioned, because they can release up to 1 million eggs a year, they can very quickly overwhelm a water system. As they are filter feeders, they siphon particles of plankton from water, but they are highly efficient, and they can extremely quickly clear water of almost all floating particles, which is what the smaller fish, native mussels, and other maybe invertebrates that live in the water depend on. And because of this quickly alters the food webs. So zebra mussels are actually native to the Black, Caspian, and Azov Seas of Eastern Europe. They were actually discovered in the Great Lakes, specifically Lake St. Clair in 1988. As of right now, they are present in at least 31 states, all the way from the west coast to the east coast, the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state, Louisiana, Texas, and so on. They were actually listed as an injurious wildlife species in 1991 under the Lacey Act because of all the damage they do. It is actually believed that they originally got into the Great Lakes because of people bringing boats from the Sea of Azov, the Black Sea, the Caspian Sea, and actually going into the Great Lakes. And from there, people have spread them across the country. So as I've mentioned, zebra mussels have significant ecological harm to any environment they're in. The populations, because of how quickly they can reproduce, can reach thousands per square meter, which is hundreds per square feet. Dense populations can remove most suspended particles from the water or lake. This makes the water significantly clearer, which allows for the better growth of aquatic plants like algae. This alters the amount of oxygen in the water and can be extremely dangerous for species that might need specific oxygen levels. Zebra mussels can also change the chemical and physical nature of their habitat. They can provide the right conditions for botulism to thrive, which is extremely dangerous. They often block pipes and other structures, especially water intake pipes, because of the protection that the pipe provides and the constant flow of water, which in turn provides a steady food supply. So who exactly is impacted by this? So of course, wildlife and humans who consume fish are impacted the most. Toxins are stored in the mussels, which, when they are eaten by fish, is transferred to the fish, which is called bioaccumulation. Municipal water supplies are often overwhelmed with mussels, affecting water quality and treatment, and these treatments can be extremely expensive and time-consuming. Of course, native aquatic species are extremely impacted by zebra mussels because of the lack of food, because the zebra mussels siphon everything that they can. Industries are also another big thing impacted by zebra mussels. As I mentioned previously, they clog up pipes, which can impact power generation, manufacturing, and irrigation. Recreational users are also another big group impacted by zebra mussels, whether that be boaters, anglers, or swimmers. Consumers, which is pretty much everyone, is also impacted by zebra mussels because of the fact that they block pipes, which then may need treatment and removal, which then in turn may increase the cost of water. Of course, people who may be eating a lot of fish, like consumers, also face risks from the contaminated fish. So many people do have conflicting views about zebra mussels. Many people are unaware of the harm and may even think positively about them. If you look at them, oftentimes, they are just small striped seashells. They look kind of like clams, and many people consider them to be a natural part of the aquatic environment. Unfortunately, this belief stems from ignorance, but most people often see them as a minor nuisance because if you're walking on a beach or something, they are sharp and their shells can pierce the bottom of your foot. Many people do not understand that their ecological and infrastructural harm is significant, but unfortunately it is not readily apparent. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the difference between, for example, our native mussels, zebra mussels, and other different types of mussels or clams. So, as I mentioned, they do have impacts on human recreation, but they are more significant than you might think. For example, zebra mussels foul boat engines and hulls, which increases drag, affects steering, and slows the boat, and this can often be quite significantly, and sometimes it might even affect things like the anchor, motor, and other gear enough where it doesn't even work properly anymore, which can be extremely dangerous. As I mentioned previously, they also have quite sharp shells that cut feet. Because zebra mussels spread so quick, the cleanups can be quite costly, and the methods used might not always be the safest to other wildlife or even to humans, so lakes and other bodies of water that get infested may be closed. They attach themselves to any solid object, so this can be docks, beaches, boats, rocks, some even gear that's been left in the water for too long. Because of all of this and their physical alterations to their environment that they live in, they often cause habitat degradation, which impacts human recreation significantly, as people want to see and experience a beautiful sight, not something that has been damaged and degraded for so long by something that does not belong there. So, specifically, they do impact life within the Colorado River quite significantly. They are filter feeders, so they filter out that plankton, which starves native fish and invertebrates, as many of them rely on that plankton as their main food source. Native mollusks also rely on that plankton for their main food source, so they often outcompete our native mollusks. They also smother benthic organisms, it's kind of a hard word, which are actually bottom-dwelling organisms because they eat so much of the nutrients out of the water that there's nothing left even to sink to the bottom for these organisms. As I mentioned previously, because they filter out everything in the water so easily and so quickly, this clears the water, which increases the risks of toxic algae blooms, which in turn increases the risk of hypoxia. For those who don't know, hypoxia just means that there is a lack of oxygen. This often occurs because the aquatic plants or the algae are growing so quickly because of the clear water and the photosynthesis that they actually take not all, but almost all of the oxygen out of the system, leaving just about none left for native fish and other things, actually suffocating them, which leads, as you can see in the right-hand picture, to significant deaths. They also alter the river's chemistry, specifically because after they ingest things, they do release it as waste, but this waste tends to sink to the bottom of whatever water body they're in. Because of this, all of the nutrients begin to be concentrated on the bottom, which significantly alters nutrient ratios. So, zebra mussels also have a significant impact, as I mentioned before, on anglers and thus are popular fishing species. As I mentioned before, they disrupt food webs, which starves the fish who depend on them, which is often larval and juvenile fish, which leads to significantly smaller fish populations and can sometimes even eradicate a whole species from the area. It has a significant impact on anglers because many of these game fish no longer have smaller fish to eat, so instead they begin going after the zebra mussels. But the zebra mussels have significant amounts of mercury in them, and that mercury gets transferred to the fish through bioaccumulation and thus makes the fish unable to be eaten, which impacts a lot of anglers as many people who fish try to eat the fish. But because of this, as I mentioned, it does promote dense aquatic vegetation, and this significantly impacts oxygen levels, which is very dangerous for many species as they need specific oxygen levels, and changing it, especially going lower, can kill them. But it also changes fish habitats. Because of this, in turn, it changes their behavior. Many species may have to move lower, whether that be for habitat or to find food, or sometimes may change locations entirely. So, of course, this zebra mussels have significant impacts on our endangered and threatened species in the Colorado River. We currently have about 4 endangered/endemic, which means they are only found in one area, species in the Colorado River. These are the Colorado pike minnow, the humpback chub, the razorback sucker, and bony tails, which you can see a rough picture of what they look like on the left-hand side. So, by removing important parts of the food web and increasing the chances of algae blooms, which in turn reduces oxygen and increases hypoxic conditions, these conditions allow for greater habitat and food competition. As you can probably guess, because these species are already endangered, they already have such a difficult time reproducing and living well. These species are often also predators, so because of the decline in smaller fish, that in turn affects the food that these fish can get, which decreases their populations even more. So there are some ethical concerns to be had with zebra mussels, specifically with their removal. Some people argue that all species, including ones that may be considered invasive or injurious, deserve ethical consideration. Oftentimes, zebra mussels have to have aggressive control, which includes chemical treatments and even gene drives, which may include altering that mussel's DNA so it can no longer reproduce. Of course, this ends up raising ethical concerns about interfering with natural reproduction. And some Some eradication methods are often unnatural and could be considered unethical. For example, one chemical that is often used is called potassium chloride. Potassium chloride interferes with the respiratory systems, usually just the native mollusks specifically, but it can affect other species. This pretty much suffocates them, and they die. Often, other bacteria is used that mussels may specifically ingest that kills them specifically, but this may impact our native mussel species, which are already struggling from the competition. Copper compounds are also used, but as I mentioned, these also may impact other species, and it's not always the best for humans. Pesticides are often used in killing mussels very quickly, but of course, like all the others, this can impact other species, and you have to be very careful about it. Only very specific amounts can be used because otherwise you will kill the entire ecosystem. So you may be wondering, who is exactly in charge of this problem? It's spread across the country, so not one organization can handle it. Based in Colorado, especially around this area, Colorado Parks and Wildlife has a significant role. They often have on-ground management and are often the people who help spread awareness for zebra mussels and are the ones who help people clean off their gear and whatnot. The Bureau of Reclamation is also an important player who helps, as they manage significant federal water infrastructures, and with this, they have to develop monitoring programs to ensure that the zebra mussels aren't getting out of control. The United States Geological Survey also helps out quite a bit as they conduct crucial scientific research, whether that be on their life cycle, their reproduction, what they eat, and things that might specifically target them. Of course, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service is a big player as well because they work with all of these different partners on these control products. They support rapid response in areas where zebra mussels have just been found, and they help develop regulations to prevent these zebra mussels from spreading. The Department of Interior helps as well, but they mostly manage federal efforts and funding. There is one thing that is very important that was created pretty much for situations just like this, called the Aquatic Nuisance Species Task Force. This is a national body that helps coordinate federal, state, and tribal efforts, which is significantly helpful and is focused just on these aquatic nuisance species like zebra mussels. So, why exactly are zebra mussels so hard to get rid of? They're just a mussel, so it should be easy. Well, as I mentioned before, a female can release up to 1 million eggs per year, making them extremely prolific breeders. The larval stage is also impossible to see with the human eye, so you can have a handful of water, and that might have hundreds of individuals in them, and you wouldn't know. And, of course, under the right condition, these mussels can spawn year-round, which leads to the 1 million eggs produced a year. They also easily grip themselves to hard surfaces, which can make them quite hard to remove, and in turn makes it quite costly. So, stopping the spread it's not easy, but there are definitely ways to do it. If you go into any body of water, whether or not you know if it has zebra mussels in it, it should be cleaned after each use. Oftentimes, it is cleaned with a high-pressure, hot, soapy water before entering new waters, which you can often find across the state, and there's little stations for them. A tablespoon of water could carry hundreds of these invaders, making it extremely easy to spread from one place to another. If someone decides not to clean their gear, whether because they're in a rush or something, that gear should be dried out for at least a week before entering a new body of water to ensure that the zebra mussels that may be on it or that were in their larval stage that you can't see have been pretty much suffocated, and they will not spread. On any gear, including boats, boots, fishing gear, bait, and so on, all plants, animals, and mud has to be cleaned off because zebra mussels can be found in all of it. If you have something like a boat, you have to drain the water from all the bilges, live wells, and engines to ensure that the water does not stay in there and thus get spread to another body of water. If you do happen to see zebra mussels in a body of water, please report it to your local wildlife and fish service agency as soon as you can, because the sooner you know about it, the better chance you have of eradicating them and saving that ecosystem. Here are my references used. A lot of them involve national agencies. Well, thank you so much for listening to my talk about zebra mussels, and if you have any questions, please let me know and I will do my best to answer them.